Welcome back. Thank you for joining me on the third and final review of the book Courtiers by Valentine Lowe. Picking back up, the book, The Courtiers, gives the reader a small peek into the dynamics between the royal family and the people who support them to keep the monarchy and its brand intact in representation. From an American perspective, in any corporation or business, it is understood that mixing your personal and work life together can prove disastrous, as many times familiarity can breed contempt. The book's major theme is centered around the courtier's fine line of integration of personal feelings and emotions and not letting it affect judgment, which at times can affect the decisions and behaviors that align with the monarchy's goals and objectives. Valentine Lowe cites numerous examples where this dynamic, or let's say dysfunctional dynamic, can bring unnecessary stress and anxiety for the staff of being caught in the middle of the royal family's personal relationship affairs with one another. This is one of the areas amongst many where Meghan Markle struggled with working with the courtiers. To elaborate, in some degree, there is a clash of culture. In this unique working relationship, through no fault of Meghan Markle's own, was the courtiers' implied understanding of being the go-between for family members to handle or be the ones leading dispute resolution. In the past, royals have gotten used to the courtiers acting as somewhat like a middleman, alleviating family members having to face personal issues with one another. Valentine Lowe talks about Diana's frustration and embarrassment of the infidelity, eating disorder, and the rows with Charles, in which the staff were all keenly aware. Courtier Michael Colburn, Charles's personal secretary, took a tremendous amount of abuse during the tumultuous time in the prince's life with Diana. On many occasions, Colburn found himself on the receiving end of Charles's temper, but despite their occasional fractious moments, the two had a close and warm relationship. Colburn had a front row seat to the disintegration of Charles and Diana's marriage, with Colburn getting caught in the crosshairs of one major fight where, after the major fight, Charles suddenly appeared and threw something at Colburn. It was Diana's wedding ring, which Colburn somehow managed to catch. Diana had lost so much weight that it no longer fitted and had to be adjusted. With the staff knowing so much about the personal lives of the royals, one can understand how communication could be manipulated and be an interference with judgment, such is the case with Diana's private secretary, Patrick Jepson. After Charles and Diana's house separated, Jepson had to figure out how to manage and work with Diana. Jepson eventually ran out of road with Diana, and he had always known he would. It had happened to others before him, and he was under no illusions that he would be an exception. He started to make his secret plans to leave when he read a story in the Daily Mail saying that the princess did not trust the loyalty of even those closest to her. He's quoted saying, "I knew my employer well enough to recognize a career prospects review when I saw it. It was not until the revelations about how the BBC journalist Martin Bashir secured his 1995 Panorama interview with Diana that Jepson realized exactly what had gone wrong. As Lord Dyson detailed in his 2021 report into the scandal, Bashir had concocted a series of lies to win Diana's trust, including claims that Jepson and Richard Eilard were being paid by the security services to spy on Diana. When there are personal issues with the royal relationships, it's rare for the royals to pick up the phone and speak directly with one another. When you're communicating with these quote-unquote middlemen, the result has been mistrust and division. As you can see, this extreme was seen through this BBC interview manipulation with Bashir and Diana. Most recently, this behavior was seen with Harry and his family once the Duchess of Deceive came into the picture. We can understand why Harry didn't go to his family about Meghan's mental problems if they really did exist. It's my belief that he didn't attempt to go through his normal channel of communication, which is through the courtiers, aka middlemen, as he didn't trust the people working for him. Now, we have all come to learn that whenever Meghan tells one of her mega lies, there's always a small element of truth that is embedded in these massive lies. So I don't doubt that she reached out to HR. She probably emailed HR general inquiry box, probably asking about something non-related, probably nowhere close to being suicidal, and somehow it was overlooked or ignored. And with that, she took that story saying that she went to the palace HR department, spoke to them about her being suicidal and needing help, but in reality, it was just a story for her to tell on Oprah. The book reveals that the palace went out of their way to give Meghan and Harry more than enough resources, especially with staff. They had multiple press secretaries, they had multiple assistants. They were given the best private secretary. It just was a situation that I believe the setup didn't work out because there were too many people involved in her business and personal affairs. Meghan's grift and deception could not sustain itself in its current environment, and the team in place ultimately were serving the crown, not her. That's the biggest problem right there. Valentine Lowe goes on to write that Harry has struggled with his relevance and realized this before Meghan even showed up onto the scene. His anxiety he felt about George when he grew up and his generation slowly pushing him to become irrelevant. And he didn't want to end up like his uncle Andrew as a man without a purpose. Harry's frustration with the staff and the media put the courtiers in a position to have to take sides either to the crown or to him with his demand of how his public brand was being shaped, and wanted that same loyalty that they were showing the crown in defending him. He also had a disdain for the people who surrounded his father and the queen. I can now understand the place that Harry was coming from when he was telling Oprah of how he tried to talk to his father about the plans for Megxit, as well as trying to schedule time with the queen. And many of us probably thought, well, he's your grandmother. Can't you just show up and ask to see her? Well, understanding that these courtiers, they do act in some way as a gatekeeper, and they're the ones who advise what is best. So when Harry made the statements he wants to make sure that the queen is protected, he was directly taking a jab at her private secretary at the time, Edward Young, for being part of influencing the queen to say no to the security. Now, here's the thing: if you have to do this with your own family for every single thing, then that is understandably frustrating. In this case, when we were talking about Megxit, it was pertaining to the security and getting taxpayer money connected to the monarchy, aka business operation. There is no doubt in my mind that this was appropriate for Edward Young to have every right to advise the Queen. In my opinion, is that these types of instances, you have to separate personal relationship with business relationship. And Harry failed to do that. This is not a situation where he was asking his grandmother to pay for his security out of her personal savings account. I can understand the frustration of having staff having to get involved with all your personal business. And I think that this is where, over the course of time, members of the family have blurred that boundary and in some cases have disrespected it. We've seen that with how Charles treated his private secretaries and getting them involved in the midst of the Diana Camilla love triangle. Now, I'm not taking sides, but I do believe that partial blame for Meghan's bad behavior towards the staff was Harry's fault, as he also disrespected and behaved badly by crossing the proverbial professional line and showing Meghan that you can be unprofessional and act like a jerk without consequences. So, the real source of the rift between William and Harry was not so much blaming Meghan, although she was a good source of it, but it was, in fact, blaming Harry as a fault because it does fall on his shoulders for him to put Meghan, or he should have put Meghan in her place, but instead was responsible for enabling, supporting, and encouraging her bad behavior. The big reason why Harry didn't do it because Meghan was threatening to leave him if she didn't get her way. Now, using my woman intuition and observing all the last 4 years, Meghan knew Harry liked her more than she liked him and weaponized her power over him to get whatever she wanted. She always made sure she maintained the upper hand. If you think about it and go back to human nature, the male species, their natural instincts are hunters and are competitive. Once they conquer something, they move on to the next. If Meghan kept throwing out leaving Harry or made him feel like he doesn't have completely a secure foot in this relationship, of course, he did whatever he had to do to conquer her in that way. You ever notice that when a man is finished with a relationship, he has made up his mind and he rarely looks back, trying to go back to getting the girl back. But if he is not finished or feels like he's conquered the relationship, he is left trying to get her back, especially if he sees that she has moved on and no longer needs him. Then that obsession to get her back becomes greater. Hence, you see some men pulling out all the stops to try and win her over. I truly believe that in the beginning, Harry probably was the most romantic person by taking her on trips and buying her things and surprising her with, gifts and what have you. And I believe that when Meghan doesn't get what she wants, she deploys this tactic of devaluing Harry because she understands that Harry loves her more than she loves him. And to treat him in such a way, being cold and detached, she knows that when she behaves like this, withholding affection, silent treatment, etc., it destroys him. She also knows that when you remove distractions like his family and friends from the environment, it would make it harder for him to walk away and call it quits on her. I'm waiting for this day, and the day will come that Harry is going to come to terms that he's not interested in her anymore, and that hopefully he will meet a distraction, or if he hasn't already, and be able to quit this bad habit. All the voodoo tricks that she has performed on him, hopefully that spell would be broken with his interest in another woman in which he could go hunt. It is my opinion that if Harry were to quit Meghan first, she would absolutely lose her mind and she would have the willingness to try and appease and get him back and do whatever that she can. But if the day does come, just know that there is no going back for the male because once they make their mind up, that's it. They keep moving on to the next. So our hope is that there is somebody that catches his eye so he can move on. And hopefully he does it before she finds somebody to move on. Because once she does find somebody that she can move on to, if she realizes that the relationship is ending, this Hollywood parasite needs to find another host before she sucks this one dry. Hopefully, and this is just wishful thinking, that Meghan meets another narcissist who understands her game and flips the script. I believe that Meghan is attracted to the jerk. And I also believe that once she gets the jerk to do what she wants, as opposed to the jerk making her chase, then that's when she loses respect and she ends up walking all over him, which is what we have seen with Prince Harry. I also believe that Meghan right now is probably resentful towards Harry because she is not being treated as the princess that she expected, she would be, meaning in the sense that Harry is not spoiling her. He's not spending lavish amounts of money on buying her flowers or doing romantic gestures that you see normally in Hollywood you read about, such as the fancy cars as gifts from the husbands on birthdays or the lavish trips. High maintenance Meghan realized that this family she married into, despite having millions of dollars, lived to a certain extent modestly. And they're not in favor of the gratuitous extravagance. It is why she did not fit in with the family and, more importantly, the people in the firm, aka the monarchy. It's my opinion that Meghan had selfish intentions from day one. The business, aka the firm and its staff, went up and beyond to help her fit in and also succeed in the new role that she was so eager to take. It didn't matter what they did. She was determined to find issues and built a narrative almost in retaliation for not getting what she wanted or for the palace not changing and bending to her requests. Meghan's behavior while she was new royal, as well as on these tours representing the monarchy, was an example of her arrogance and her new money elitism attitude, demonstrating her ignorant perception of being in the royal family and that it entitled her to be able to abuse and use people however she wanted without any consequences, because somehow she felt superior. So this book really was focused, in my opinion, was the royals. There's not that much about Meghan and Harry and Meghan's behavior with the staff, which was sort of disappointing to me. I would have thought there would have been more elaboration on the Australian tour, but pretty much what was released in those extracts or those excerpts from the UK Times newspaper is what is mentioned in the book. Now, I also recognize that Valentine Lowe was very lenient on Meghan and her, I want to say, hidden agenda. He also did have some facts wrong, and one of those facts was this one. Valentine Lowe cites, one of the changes that followed was Meghan needed a new PR team to help her in the US. The palace communications setup would deal with everything royal related, but her former PR advisors, while perfectly adept at getting her guest spots on chat shows, were not deemed up for the job dealing with her new celebrity status. A serious player was needed who was used to dealing with A-listers, and Knopf helped her find Kaylee Thomas Morgan of Sunshine Sachs, whose clients have included Salma Hayek, Jane Fonda, and Natalie Portman. So, being it's saying here, according to Valentine Lowe, that it was Knopf who introduced Meghan to Sunshine Sachs, and we all know that that is not true. It's a well-known fact that Meghan was working with Sunshine Sachs before she was in the royal family, and Tom Bauer did highlight that in Chapter 5, titled Manhunt, where it says, Meghan flew across the Atlantic in November 2013 to secure contracts for work. And on a manhunt. To promote herself, she had hired Sunshine Sachs, a PR agency in Los Angeles famous for crisis management and known to represent Ben Affleck, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, Leonardo DiCaprio, Justin Timberlake, and so forth. It then goes on to say that among Sunshine's trusted partners was Kaylee Thomas Morgan, a pleasant-looking middle-aged woman. Sunshine Sachs were paid about $7,500 per month to transform an unknown actress into a global celebrity. Among their earliest attempts to make a star of Meghan was an appearance in January 2013 at an Elle magazine celebration in West Hollywood of women in television. Media coverage of the event only made brief mention of Meghan Markle. Now, if you guys haven't seen my video, I did show the video of Meghan signing autographs in which she had paid people to be there with Sarah Rafferty. Anyhow, back to the story. My point being is that Meghan was dealing with Sunshine Sachs before she came onto the scene, so I'm not really sure how Valentine Lowe got this one wrong. Now, another story that was conflicting was Valentine Lowe's explanation of Tiaragate, where he says, February for Meghan to look at a short list of appropriate tiaras at Buckingham Palace. Accompanied by Harry and under the watchful eye of Angela Kelly, the Queen's dresser, who is also curator of the Queen's jewelry, Meghan opted for Queen Mary's diamond bandeau tiara. So far, so good. Despite some confusing reports, there was no row about which tiara Meghan could have. She got her first choice. It was what happened afterwards that was a problem, and that was Meghan wanted to get the tiara so her hairstylist that she flew in could practice on her head with it. And that, according to Valentine Lowe, was the row that Harry had with Angela Kelly, and in turn prompted the Queen to speak to Harry. But this was not the story that Tom Bauer told, and here's what he said, in which Bauer writes, no member of Buckingham Palace's staff is closer to the Queen than Angela Kelly, the 61-year-old personal advisor of the Queen's wardrobe. Devoted to the monarch, Kelly's many duties included caring for the royal collection of tiaras. Invited to the palace's secure room, Meghan alighted on a tiara sparkling with emeralds. Her choice was approved by Harry. Kelly suggested that the Russian origin made it unsuitable. Harry became angry. He had been downright rude, the Times was told. Kelly reported the unhappy exchange to the Queen. Harry was summoned by his grandmother to a private meeting. He was put firmly in his place, the Times reported. So now we have conflicting reports of what happened with this tiara. Now, I'm tending to believe Tom Bower because he was thorough with his research as well as putting his sources, as opposed to this book. And also, too, I've heard from other sources about this emerald tiara before it was even reported on. So I don't think that Valentine Lowe got this story right. But, who really knows what happened? It would have to be somebody like Angela Kelly coming forward. Now, that many have said that the tiara that Meghan wanted to wear was the tiara that Eugenie had picked out for her wedding, which was, emerald as well. But that was not, if we go by the story of Meghan not getting the emerald tiara because of its provenance and it being controversial, then I can understand that this selection would have been with purpose because the bitch is crazy. Meghan must have known that this was Queen Elizabeth's favorite tiara, hence the reason why she picked it out so she could wear it. I mean, let's not forget, she named her phantom child the Queen's nickname. You don't get much more crazy than that. But back to the book. Overall, I think Valentine Lowe was very lenient on Meghan. He appeared to be very careful of the things that he said or recited from the news. It almost appeared that he was somewhat on her side in justifying her behavior as well as painting her in this light by quoting one of the staffers saying that Meghan actually did the ultimate kindness for Harry by taking him out of the institution. I don't find that too kind because it allowed Harry to unleash and become equally deviant and malicious to the people that gave him everything, which I think in itself was a slap in the face to the family. I'll just call it out like it is. Meghan Markle is a liar. There is no need to give room or make up excuses for why she did what she did or interpret her behavior or justify it, which is what I found Valentine Lowe doing from time to time when he spoke about her. Some of the things that were said in the book, he had stated way back in a video of the bullying allegations, and it's the same story that's being repeated in multiple media circuits, right? Documentaries talking about the bullying case. So there's nothing earth-shattering and new about, her treatment of the staff. It's really covered or has been covered. I think what's enlightening is that more people from mainstream media is catching on and talking about it. And to be quite direct and upfront, people don't like Meghan Markle because of her behavior, and that behavior was purposely inciting division. The reason why Meghan was such a disruption to the firm, in summary, was because the firm mismanaged the situation. And this I agree with Valentine Lowe's sentiment. They never had to deal with someone uncivil and so classless before in the family. Now, albeit, the other members of the family, Prince Andrew, also had similar behaviors of being just a total asshole. But look at how Prince Andrew turned out. Now, I was surprised and somewhat disappointed that Valentine Lowe didn't mention interaction with Princess Anne, nor did he mention interaction with Prince Edward, which I guess in a way that says something to their character and how they treat their staff. Apparently, they didn't or they don't conduct themselves in the manner that demoralized or crossed boundaries with the staff. For the most part, the book was focused on Prince Charles, and then, sort of like a compare and contrast between the way the Queen worked with her private secretaries and how the different palaces, Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace, and Clarence House, all worked together in that dynamic. And then they sprinkled in Prince Andrew and then the dynamic when the Sussexes came onto the scene, how to fit them into it. For those that are fascinated with the royal life and how things work, this would be a book for you. It is a good book and also a quick read. There's only 16 chapters, but if you were expecting to hear anything new or earth-shattering, this is definitely not the book that has anything revealed that we already didn't know, especially about the gruesome twosome. I think what is clear is that, yes, there is a consensus that Meghan has this pattern of behaving badly, but also, too, the firm operates in a manner that does have some very blurry and gray lines that kind of are unique in a business setting because you're dealing with a family. And to learn about the dynamic and some of the things or the extent that these people will go to in order to serve the monarch is interesting. At the same time, it's not surprising. So, my overall sentiment about the book, yeah, I don't feel like it was as exciting as Tom Bower's book Revenge, but yeah, it was good to review it and get a better understanding, especially around how Harry behaved and why he behaved the way that he did. The book also exposed Charles to a certain extent. I'm surprised at learning about the questionable people that Charles had in his circle throughout the years. It almost felt, in the way that Valentine Lowe was telling it, that the palaces, respectively Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace, and Clarence House, were all working in silos with their own divisions, trying to outdo each other's houses. But in the grand scheme of things, you look at any organization that have a group of people that have to work together and have individual minds and supporting different principles, you're going to have a bit of competitiveness, you're going to have some disagreements, and you're going to have things that could not be predicted. And the one thing that I think, and I'll support Meghan and Harry causing all this chaos, is that they recognize that there is a breakdown in communication, and that that's the most important thing out of all of this was the breakdown of talking to one another. And I think hopefully that lesson does improve so future things like this or disruption and chaos from personal agendas does not affect the monarchy and its mission. We're in a new era with King Charles, so it'll be interesting to see how adaptable to change this new monarch will be in improving this communication and streamlining across the board so everybody can work as one solid, cohesive team towards serving the monarch. I think this book was good in exposing the various areas of where there were breakdowns in communication and how things can go so wrong. To be on the kinder side, I think the whole Meghan and Harry Megxit thing taught them a lesson of where those breakdowns were. And I do believe that the firm will actively try to enforce new code of business conduct in this new age or new reign with King Charles. At least I hope. I do see that Prince William definitely is on the right track with his staff and setting the proper example in how people that you work with should be treated. We will just have to wait and see how things turn out as King Charles takes on this new reign and how he runs the ship. So, but that's my opinion overall. Preferably, I still think that Tom Bower's book Revenge was, I think, more explosive in revelations than this book was. But overall, I thought it was a good book and a quick read. So if you're looking for something, it's only 16 chapters. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. I will be back soon with something new that I think you guys are going to like. Just bear with me. I'm having computer issues and trying to make this computer last until I can get a new one. So, thank you for your patience, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Such a fraud.